look at history and you look at every civil war, and the point of cleavage in the army is when the army is ordered to fire on its own citizens.
That's the start of the Civil War. That's the moment, see? And that is going to happen in the United States. There is going to be an incident at some point where the American government will have pressured the people and abused them and just been despicable for so long that eventually some demonstration, something will happen. Some event will happen. And in and of itself, it might seem trivial, but what will happen is that, see, American troops will be deployed to maintain security, safety, to keep the streets safe, as they're doing in Washington, for instance. And what will happen is that, see, the soldiers will be deployed, and they will be under the command of some, lieutenant colonel or major or whoever, right? And that officer is going to be on the ground with his soldiers. And the American government will tell the Joint Chiefs of Staff to order that commanding officer on the ground to fire on American citizens. That will be the moment, because one of two things is going to happen. Either that lieutenant colonel or major or whoever's in charge, right, he is going to either carry out that order or refuse to do so. Now, if he carries out the order and shoots American citizens, this will be catastrophic for the American military. Because what will happen is that there will be a substantial portion of the American military, irrespective of their politics, that constitutionally, like morally, like in their blood and bones, they will not be able to stomach that. They will say, yeah, maybe these people were insurrectionists. Yeah, but they're Americans. We can't, as an army, be killing American citizens. In America, we can't be doing that. There will be a substantial number of officers, and certainly non-commissioned officers and soldiers, who will say, no, that is unacceptable. And there will be a substantial portion of officers and non-commissioned officers and soldiers who will say, well, the government ordered, so they must be right, and we have to maintain order. We have to do what the government says. That's the moment. That's the moment when the American military will cleave. And from there, it will be only a matter of time before those two factions in the American military start to fight one another. Because you see, if an army is in disagreement with each other internally, if an army, the officer corps, a substantial portion say that certain orders are immoral and unjustified, and the others say, well, no, that's what the civilian authorities say, and they say go and shoot these people, so we go and shoot these people. That's it. That's curtains. See? Because in the hypothetical, I said there were two possibilities, of course. That number one, that the commanding officer on the ground shot the protesters or the insurrection, whatever they're going to be called, right? The one possibility is that they shoot them. The other possibility is that he refuses to carry out those orders, right? Well, if he refuses to carry out those orders, then that officer, lieutenant colonel or major or whomever, he'll be instantly cashiered and thrown into a stockade, and that'll be that, right? But then there'll be another incident identical to that one. And so that man's career will be destroyed, yes, but he will simply have postponed that day of cleavage, that day of breaking the military into two factions. One willing to shoot American citizens and the other unwilling to shoot American citizens. They are more willing to overdo it, to overstep their bounds. See? And so because of that, they're going to push and push and push and abuse people who disagree with them. No problem ordering the military to shoot American civilians whom they consider unpersons. See? That was the moment of the beginning of the slippery slope. The slippery slope that goes straight to the end, which is kill everybody who opposes us. Deserve a punch in the face, a bullet between the eyes. They believe that. They believe that anybody who opposes them is an unperson who doesn't deserve to live. And the moment when the military shoots on American citizens, By the way, this happened, huh? This happened. Yeah, well, you know, the Boston Massacre. What the hell do you think that was? What, the Redcoats shot on Americans? No, the Redcoats shot on British citizens. Yeah, because those people in Boston in 1774, whenever it was, they were British subjects. And that army was the British Army. Huh? And that was the moment when the British Army in the American colonies split. And George Washington, who was, I'm not sure if he was the most senior officer who split off, but certainly, you know, one of the most respected, if not the most respected. He became the de facto commander-in-chief of the American Revolutionary Forces. See? And you look at other countries that have experienced civil wars, it's pretty much the same story every time. The military starts shooting on the citizens on the orders of a government that a substantial portion of the people think is not only wrong, but illegitimate. And that government, in order to shore up its legitimacy, resorts to force. Yeah. I mean, look, this is a really interesting thought experiment, right? And you don't have to believe me. But it's something to think about. And if you look at history, see, Mark Twain said something very smart. He said that history doesn't repeat itself, but it certainly rhymes. Every single civil war in the past shares so many features with what the United States is experiencing now, in the lead up to the Civil War. And it was always the same. A divided body politic, a new government that a substantial portion of the population thought was illegitimate, not just wrong, not just of the opposing party, but illegitimate. This new government abusing
its political opponents to the point that those political opponents just found it intolerable and they started standing up. And eventually, that new government, perceived as illegitimate, started shooting its enemies, i.e. its fellow citizens. And that's when all hell broke loose. That has happened every time. The United States claims, or a lot of people in the United States claim that the United States is exceptional. Might be exceptional in many ways, but it's not that fucking exceptional.